Our next speaker is Peter Frederick.
Last year, the Chicago City Council shot down a proposed resolution criticizing India's Citizenship Amendment Act. Notably, the CAA has been compared to Nazi Germany's Nuremberg laws, which stripped German Jews of citizenship. In that context, any humanitarian-minded person certainly ought to criticize and condemn it. Yet no, instead, the city of Chicago bent the knee to foreign pressure. While many Indian Americans insisted the city pass the resolution, the city of Chicago paid more attention to the frantic calls coming from the Indian consulate. Although not just the Indian consulate, Dr. Bharat Barai of Chicagoland also applied pressure. Interestingly enough, Bharat Barai happens to be a long-term leader of VHP America, an organization associated with the HSS. Now, the HSS is the international wing of India's RSS, fascist RSS paramilitary, which happens to be the parent organization of the country's ruling party, the BJP. The BJP notably passed the Citizenship Amendment Act. And back to Barai, back in 2014, he led a contingent of hundreds of volunteers from America back to India to campaign for the BJP's election. So he is a leader here in America of an organization with partisan interest in the ruling party of India, the same party which passed the CAA, and he also literally campaigned to elect that party. Then he turned around and told Chicago not to criticize that party's passage of the CAA. Sound like a neutral voice to you? Anyways, forget about the CAA. Let's talk about the HSS. The HSS is the international wing of the RSS, a nearly 100-year-old paramilitary in India that has perpetrated assassinations, including of Gandhi, terrorist bombings, and massacres, particularly Muslims and Christians. The HSS here in America doesn't advertise its ties to the RSS, and perhaps that's why the city of Chicago awarded the HSS a proclamation praising it in January of this year. Despite the city's $17 billion budget, you didn't bother Googling for 5 seconds to discover that the HSS is connected to a fascist paramilitary. That's okay. After all, Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, for instance, already knows. He's been repeatedly informed and warned by Indian American groups around the country, but he apparently doesn't care and prefers the campaign funding he can get from leaders of the HSS, as well as from people like Bharat Barai. Barai, notably, was there with Raja from the ground floor. Maybe that's why Raja Krishnamoorthi reportedly actively collaborated with both the Indian consulate and the mayor's office to squash the resolution criticizing the Citizenship Amendment Act, a resolution which would have offended some of his oldest and most faithful campaign supporters, considering, after all, that before they worked to elect Raja, they worked to elect the regime in India that eventually passed the CAA. Anyways, Chicago politics does have a reputation, so who am I to expect Raja or the city itself to stand on principle? Who am I to expect any other explanation for these actions other than pay to play?
Thank you, Mr. Frederick, for your comments.